Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Roundtable with Littleboy. With me in studio, as usual, is my guest, Darren.
Thanks for having me.
And we had somebody lined up to be calling in on the phone, and it ended up not working out. So we have the phone line open today if you guys want to call in and comment on anything we're talking about today, or comment on something that we said before, like we had a caller last week do, or something that you think is interesting to talk about. Go ahead and call in at 619-387-3457. And for those of you who are watching this recorded, we do stream live every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time at www.pmlbsports.com/live. First, I'll start out by thanking our sponsors, Four Wheel Parts. Go to the website, click on the link, buy something. It'll help us out a little bit. Maybe help us buy a new tablet, because this is hard to use.
And which website is that?
And that's at pmlbsports.com. So, and you can also check out all our other shows. We have a lot of shows going on there. So check it out. I'm not going to run through all of them right now, but check it out. It's a really neat website. Lots of content. Let's start out with one of the things that everybody in sports is talking about right now. Bobby Petrino fired by Arkansas. He got in a motorcycle accident. He lied a little bit, didn't report that he had a female on the back of the motorcycle, and then when he knew that the report was coming out, he admitted to it, which, you know, he stepped outside of his marriage. You're going to fire somebody for that? I'm not sure. Lots of people do that. But they start to investigate, and they find out that he gave this girl a $20,000 cash gift and maybe gave her some preferential treatment when he hired her to the football staff. You think it was justified to fire him?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he breached his contract, you know, plain and simple.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're going by that, yes. Do I blame Petrino for maybe stretching the truth a little bit or leaving some aspects of it out? Of course not. I mean, the guy's got a family and right. Kids. So, I mean, I can't blame him or hate on him for that. But as far as Arkansas firing him, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, when you get caught in a lie as massive as that or something as bad as that, your first intention is to lie about it, to maybe try and get away with it, because he was already trying to get away with something anyway, so
right.
You certainly don't want to admit to it that very second. And then it comes to the point where he knew he didn't have a choice. He had to come out. He had to admit to it. I think the more of the problem was the fact that he hired this girl without really going through the proper process, you know, because this is his girlfriend on the side.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like full-fledged little mistress on the side, yeah.
Right, and he gave her a job and money and all that type of stuff. So they fired him. When he left, he was kind of dirty the way he left the Atlanta Falcons, too.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he's got a little bit of history. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on Bobby Petrino.
Real quick, you think he's worth another school, maybe a smaller school, a la San Diego State?
Yeah, he's going to have to. He's going to have to go to a smaller school and build himself up. I think he will get a job. I don't think any NFL team will give him the time of day, to be honest with you. I just don't think after what he did in Atlanta.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
You know, but I do think that what he's going to do is he's going to end up hooking up with a small school, and it'll be actually, whether this guy's a dirtbag or not, he is a good coach,
yeah. And
it will actually be very, very good for a small program to build him up. I really believe that. And that's a good question.
Would you want your school to go out? I mean, look what he did. Arkansas is a major SEC school. I mean, he's got them in the top 10. Would you want the Aztecs to go after him? Would you want that reputation being the head football coach at San Diego State?
I think the Aztecs, I wouldn't have a huge problem with it. I think the Aztecs aren't as in bad a shape as they were before. I know that you were down on them a little bit because they lost that bowl game.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be losing to was it
Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah. You know, that was ridiculous. I think they're moving in the right direction. I think that they lost a lot of players, and that's one of the reasons why we maybe stepped down a little bit. But I think they're actually moving in the right direction.
Yeah, but I mean, they're going to need a big-name head coach. So
if the Aztecs program was where it was like 5 years ago, right now I would say hire Bobby Petrino this very second. You know, but I think that it's stepped up a little bit since then. I want to give Rocky Long a chance to maybe step it up a little bit more. I wouldn't be on board with them cutting him and hiring him. We're going to move on to the other subject that everybody's talking about, but we'll get to weigh in our opinion on it. Ozzie Guillen suspended for 5 games. The Times quoted him saying he loved and respected Castro because a lot of people have wanted to kill him the last 60 years, but and he said some bad words and stuff. Basically, he said, I respect somebody who everybody's wanted to kill for so long, and he's basically still in power, and he's gotten away with it. His reasoning was more like, it was lost in translation. This kind of, I wanted to research this, and I didn't. I should have. Remember when Marge Schott said some stuff? I don't know if you're too young for that or not.
I remember.
And she got run out of town, for the things she said about Hitler. And the problem is when you have somebody who is, if you talk about somebody who has done such horrible, horrible things, it's real hard for people to get past what you're saying. And a lot of people have had issues with this. But I'm curious. I'm going to actually have Fat Man. He's producing today, everybody. Fat Man weigh on this, because this kind of, a lot of people were saying that he has a First Amendment right to say whatever he wants. And, the one thing that I was thinking, I did hear Fat Man click in, but I want to say this real quick. The one thing I was thinking is his First Amendment rights weren't violated. He's not in prison.
Right.
You know?
Right.
He still was able to say that without going to jail. What do you think there, Fat Man?
Let's talk about First Amendment rights real quick. Does anybody understand that First Amendment rights are that the government doesn't get to censor you? A lot of people don't understand that. They think that I can go out there and say whatever I want because I have a First Amendment right. That's not exactly true.
Right.
The First Amendment protects you against the government saying that you cannot set this up like a news article, or that you're not able to have free speech. It's also the right to assemble. There's other things in the First Amendment right. Religion's in there as well. The problem is with what he said had absolutely nothing to do with First Amendment right at all. He was able to say it. Nobody said he couldn't
Exactly.
say it.
His First Amendment rights weren't violated.
No, not at all. But Castro is a horrible person, and when he's down in Florida, and this is where Ozzie is right now in Florida. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that. I don't think he knew how many people in Florida, in the 60s escaped Castro. And
exactly.
That they're there. I mean, when Castro took over, he was an educated man at the time. He's educated. I mean, he still is. Anyway, when he took over, it was a lot of death, a lot of killing. Did not care what it was. He almost took the whole world out, World War III.
And the deal is, there's a lot of people down in Miami who have been directly affected by Castro, or they have family that has been directly affected by Castro. But the First Amendment, and he was protected. That's the thing, is people keep making this First Amendment argument. His First Amendment rights were protected because it protects you against unpopular speech as well, and it did. He's not in jail. He's not being prosecuted, but whenever you were speaking, especially somebody who's like a manager of a team, you represent that team. If I started talking out against my company, I would be in trouble. I wouldn't go to jail, but my boss would have me up in his office. I mean, you agree there, D?
Yeah, no, I agree. The whole thing with Ozzie Guillen, you know what you're getting into when you sign a guy like that.
Right.
So I to be quite honest with you, I don't agree that the Marlins should have suspended him 5 games. I thought the apology, him flying back to Miami, and the apology was sufficient enough. If people still want to hate him after that, they can. My opinion on the guy hasn't changed. I've always thought he was a scumbag. but you know that going into it. All these Marlin fans, they were so excited when they're getting guys like Carlos Zambrano, who's like but when Carlos Zambrano finally blows up and starts, kicking the crap out of everybody in the dugout, then they're going to hate him. I mean, you know what you're getting into with him.
Right.
So the fact that he said this, I personally don't think Ozzie Guillen is a smart baseball man, but he's not a smart man.
Right.
Maybe he didn't realize what Castro, all the things he'd done. Look, I'm a sports guy. I didn't until Fat Man just chimed in and all that stuff. I didn't really know the whole history on him either.
Right.
But I think what he was saying is just so many people want him dead. I respect the fact that he's still alive. He probably didn't even realize what the guy's done the last 30 years. I mean, the guy's baseball coach.
And he definitely didn't think before he spoke.
Right, but he never does. He never has.
Right,
he hasn't done that for the last 20 years.
I mean, the point he made is, I don't want to say admirable or anything. It is, we'll just use the word unbelievable, that there is somebody who's been absolutely hated for 60 years and he's still alive. We'll use the word unbelievable.
Yes,
I don't want to say admirable or something to look up to, but it is. You're like, wow, how could so many people hate you and you're still alive and you're still in power?
How did this even come up? Is what I want to know.
Yeah, it was just some article.
Did he just get set up in some magazine interview? I mean, how did this?
It was with the
Time magazine.
Yeah,
right?
Time magazine. Yeah.
How did it even come up?
Yeah,
I
don't know.
I don't know. It seems to me like he got set up, but at the same time, I mean, you know what you're getting with Ozzie Guillen. This won't be the last time he's said something controversial. I mean, at least it wasn't about a player. He's been in the past. You know, he talks talks about players and the GMs of the teams that he's working for. So, I mean,
the thing is, I actually believe that his apology was sincere.
Me too.
I don't think he actually realized that, like you were saying, and I don't actually have a problem with the 5-game suspension. I think that that's the Marlins' way of saying, okay, you know what, you messed up, you sincerely apologized, and this is what our punishment's going to be. You know,
I disagree.
People who are calling for him being fired, I think, is ridiculous.
I disagree. I think that's the Marlins' way of trying to settle down some of the Cuban fan base. It's not the Marlins. The Marlins has nothing to do with Ozzie Guillen more than the fans.
You could be right on that.
And the fact that people are saying that he should be fired, never coach again, get off your high horses. You know, come on. You know, the guy made a mistake. He apologized.
Sincerely apologized.
I agree with you. I agree with you there. I agree with the fact that I'm pretty sure he set up the press conference.
Yeah.
You know, and he took on his dime, flew back to Miami and set all that stuff up. I think the suspension is just to please the Cuban fans or the fans that thinks he should be fired or thinks he should be punished. I mean,
it's admirable to say, I made a mistake. I didn't realize all of the things that he had done. You know, for him to just say that. You know, for him to say that instead of, you know, some people they get so stubborn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you're wrong, man, you're wrong. You know, and I think that was good. I appreciate
that. That's who Ozzie
that.
Guillen is. That's who he has been. That's what the Marlins fans fell in love with when they signed him.
Right.
You know, that's this fiery coach, this fiery guy who just shouts out things out of his mouth before he thinks. He's always been like that, and that's what he's always going to continue to be. So this shouldn't be surprising to anybody.
Right.
You know?
That is a good point.
The problem is he spouted his mouth off about something he didn't know too much about.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is you can't blame the Marlins because if you have a fan base that their fan base is got to be well over half Cuban, you want to make them understand that what he said was wrong and that they apologize. I have no problem with them.
You know,
no, I don't have
maybe he thought that was a good way to get all those Cuban people to get behind him because maybe he thought the Cubans still love Fidel Castro.
Yeah, maybe he thought that. Maybe
you know,
it was
not
just
all
a lack
Cubans
of
hate
education.
that guy.
That's true.
You know, so maybe that's what he was thinking.
You got to think that most Cubans that are in. You got to think that most Cubans though that are.
I don't know that.
Miami,
I'm not a total idiot. I don't know. I can tell you the life story of Fidel Castro.
But you're not
going
to
to
speak about. But you're not going to.
I want to open my mouth to Time Magazine.
That's the idiot quote. You know, not everybody knows everything about everything. But, you know, going out and saying something like that. I have a feeling that most of the people that live in Florida that are Cuban are probably not big Castro fans because if they were, they'd probably still be there.
Right.
You know, they didn't. You know, they go through hell sometimes to get to Florida.
They risk their life just
who doesn't know that though? I mean, and I don't want to turn this into a political show because it's not, and it's just a couple of seconds. But who doesn't know? My mic is on. That people die coming over on rafts constantly. I mean, that's a big, huge thing.
That happens in Mexico too.
Yeah,
that happens. People come over from Mexico too.
Right, and they're just looking for a better life, not because there's an evil dictator over there.
Yeah, but I mean, how many times have you heard of that? I mean, that's in Florida in general. The immigration that's happening there is a huge deal.
The deal is, I don't think that everybody thinks about it or knows as much about it as you do, Fat Man. And I think that one of the deals is because you have a understanding knowledge of it, you kind of think that maybe everybody does, and not everybody has that same knowledge.
I don't have that. I'm probably the first one to admit I don't have that, you know. But then again,
but you don't go out and speak of it.
Right.
That's the point we're making. Okay, let's move on. I thought this was a good one. If a college player is found to have broken rules while they're in college, the school gets punished. We're going to use Reggie Bush and USC as an example. I mean, they got punished. And the player is able to just move on. And I mean, they took his Heisman from him, big deal. But nothing happens to the player. They did a little bit in the NFL this year with the whole Ohio State thing. But do you think that the player should be able to basically burn the school down and then move on without anything going on? Or do you think that maybe the NFL and college, and then also, I'm not just talking about the NFL, I'm using that as an example, but I'm talking about all colleges work together with the professional sports and say, you know, if this guy is burning our program down and incoming pros, will you work with us and maybe punish him at the pro level? What do you think about that?
First, the whole USC thing with Reggie Bush, I mean, that football team this year was one of the best in the country, and they didn't even get to show it, you know, because they didn't get to go to a bowl. And that's the problem is it doesn't affect Reggie Bush. It affects guys like Matt Barkley and all these guys that play behind him, and Lane Kiffin, you know. But at the same time, to think that nobody at USC knew what was going on, you know. So I see where the school gets punished. What are they going to do? I mean, they can't go tell the Miami Dolphins, you know, hey, you're going to lose 2 draft picks because of what Reggie Bush did before he was even a part of the.
Right. I'm not talking about punishing the Miami Dolphins, but I'm talking about punishing maybe Reggie Bush, suspending him.
It's such a fine line.
I know that's
such a fine line.
I thought this would be a good thing to talk about. That's what I was thinking about. It's just,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm on board with that. To be honest with you, it's just too much of a gray area. It leaves too much.
It just bothers
too big
me.
Of a gray
it just
area.
bothers me so much that you can go and basically get away without being punished.
Yeah, it sucks, but Reggie Bush.
The school really takes it. Really gets bent over.
But I'd imagine Reggie Bush isn't welcome with open arms back at USC for what he did in that program.
Care.
I'm sure he does.
He couldn't have if he was doing all that stuff.
That's not necessarily true.
Yeah, you don't think so?
No. If you were a big time athlete and someone offered you $100,000 when you didn't have.
Oh yeah, now that's another thing. I'm not judging him for I'm not judging them. When you are poor. Or
even if you're not poor,
it is tough to turn out. I'm not judging them for that. I'm not judging them for that.
I can't say that if I was in Reggie Bush's situation, I wouldn't have done the exact same thing.
No, and I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying though is it fair that the school, we both believe that somebody at the school had to have an idea that was going on.
Quite a few people.
Let's actually change that and let's just say. Nobody had any idea. Nobody at the school, although it's still their responsibility. Just like at my work, if I go and do something that hurts somebody, the business is responsible. They didn't do it, but they're responsible for their employees. So they are responsible for their players. But let's just assume that Reggie Bush was completely on his own. Nobody there knew. How is it fair that the school gets destroyed and he walks away with nothing happening to him?
It's such a hard thing to assume. You can't assume.
No, I know.
Assume that. But if I was just going by that, it's part of the business. I mean, Reggie Bush put USC on the map. He was one of the reasons that people tune in to watch him, made him one of the greatest teams. But it's too big. To me, it's too big of a gray area to throw it into the professional. I mean, same thing with basketball, baseball, whatever you want to call it. But it just leaves too much of a gray area, in my opinion. But
what do you think about, because the NFL did that, Terrell Pryor got suspended in the NFL, and Jim
Well,
Krause.
that was a little different, though. That was a little different than Reggie Bush. I think something along the lines of, he if I'm not mistaken, he ended up leaving school early or something like that.
But he was. I don't think that's what the suspension was for, though. I think the suspension was for.
I think that's why the NFL suspended him. I think that was one of the ways the NFL was teaming up with NCAA. Okay, well, you can't go commit all these penalties and just say, screw it, I'll leave early then.
Okay.
Enter the draft.
So you think that was kind of the caveat?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the reason of, just to prevent this from happening in the future.
That's how he justified
But the whole Reggie Bush thing, it didn't come out till, 2-3 years after the fact. So, it's
right.
two different cases, but for the people hating on Reggie Bush, man,
no, I'm not.
I would have done the exact same thing in his situation. People said, if he would have just waited a year, he would have been a millionaire. You get hit by a car tomorrow. Right. So
no, it's a good point. I'm not hating. I don't want to give the impression that I'm hating on Reggie Bush. I use that as an example because that's the one that
it sucks.
Most people know about, and most people can. I don't want to say relate to, but everybody. What's the first thing that pops into your mind when it's a situation like this? Reggie Bush.
Slowly starting to come out more and more each year that this stuff's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere.
Well,
in every major college.
How are we? We're about almost 20 minutes into that, man.
Yep.
Okay, we can go. Let's go on. What's the solution? I mean, do you start paying athletes?
How do you come up with the pay scale? How does Reggie Bush get paid? How does the 8th member of the field hockey team get paid?
Exactly. Plus,
that's
the big schools versus the small schools, that'll give the big schools a huge advantage.
And the people, they're getting their education paid. Reggie Bush didn't care about his education.
Right.
Reggie Bush was going to the NFL. Everybody knew it.
Sure.
So to sit there and say that, I know people. I got friends, doing a weekly Aztec show. I know people there that are on full ride scholarships. They can't afford a tank of gas to go visit a friend, 2 cities away.
And then somebody gives them $40 for gas, and all of a sudden they've committed an NCAA violation. That's tough. How can you not turn that?
I mean, we got these guys coming over our house. They're scarfing down 2 entire pizzas because they can't afford dinner.
I remember that. I remember that.
It's such a fine line. It's almost like you need these people to. It's the student athletes that come from kind of a well-off family. It's not really that big a deal. And mommy and daddy just sends them a couple bucks. But the people that just strictly can't afford it, it sucks for them. What are they going to do? I mean, they got to survive. They got to get money somehow.
That's the thing. It's one of those things that really is it's a problem. everybody knows it's a problem. Everybody complains about the way it's handled now, and nobody has a solution.
Nobody has a good solution.
Nobody has a good solution.
Paying the players is not a good solution.
No, I agree. It's almost like you got to just take the way it is and maybe do your best to catch the cheaters, and some are going to slip through the cracks, some of them aren't, and there's not really anything you can do.
Yeah, but, you know, for those of you out there saying that, you know, he's just ruining the school, I mean, can't say you went through the same thing. You're not ready for it. You're not a 5-star recruit, you know.
Right. No, I agree with you, and I don't want to. I know I talked about he burned the school down basically and stuff, which he did, but who in his position wouldn't have done the same thing?
No, it wasn't one of the things.
They had a house to live in.
His family had a house to live in.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like he was out there slinging dope.
Right.
I mean, he had a nice house for his family to live in, so he'd get out. I mean, I know where he went to school. That area is ghetto. You know, I mean, let's be honest here. So I don't blame him. But at the same time, it sucks for USC and their fans and the next 4 classes whenever this bowl ban gets lifted.
Yeah, I mean, it really sucks for them and the players, and not only the current players, because it really hurts your recruiting. Who's going to want to go to that school? So the current players aren't going to have a new influx of, there'll be still players coming in, but you're not going to get the top level recruits, because honestly, you're a top level recruit. What are the odds that you're going to go to a school that's on probation or suspension? When
you're a top level recruit, you probably got people offering you cash elsewhere.
I know.
But at the same time, USC's got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They got the best offensive lineman coming out of this year's draft. So it's not like they're not getting any talent. I mean, that's not calling them Colorado or anything like that. But they're still getting very talented players.
Set the program back a little bit though.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, that's actually going to wrap it up for us this week. Didn't have any call-ins this week like we had last week. We got quite a few last week, and we do invite you to call in. I know Darren sometimes gets a little nervous being put on the spot, because he's not nervous, because actually
put on the spot.
I take that back. I take that back. For some reason, he's not a huge fan of the call-in, which makes me want to have people call in more. I don't want to say he doesn't like being put on the spot, because every subject we spoke about today, he had no idea. He never wants to know. I offer every week. You want to know what the subjects are, and he never wants to know. He just wants to go.
I want my opinions to be genuine.
Right.
My reactions to be genuine. I don't like people calling in and questioning my integrity on something when I can't really speak my mind to them back. I got to kind of watch because father producer's chirping in my ear about what I can and can't say.
So with that said, I invite you to call in and tell Darren how wrong he was on some of his opinions today. 619-387-3457. You'll have to call in next week. He's a big fan of that, bringing up stuff that he said in the past, so make sure you do that. Once again, I'm Littleboy. You can follow me on Twitter at LBHost, and you can email me direct at littleboy@fatmanlittleboy.com. And where can we reach you, D?
I'm on Twitter at Darren PFP Sports, PFPsports.com, which is also another show that I do.
Yeah. Check out our Darren does a Aztec show weekly on Fridays, and we also do a Padres report, or a Padre cast. Last week was our first one. This will be our second one, and we're going to be doing it every week, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we got a lot of good reviews from that.
Yeah. So until then, take care.
Cheers.